All right, guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. I already see the chat going. I love to see that. Josh is in here saying he's ready to get this week started. Let me just fix the camera here. Sorry about that. We got Troy coming in here saying that he wants to play some Patrick Cantlay, but he can't. Yeah, you know, I was looking at the showdown slate a little bit, and I thought I was maybe going to be sneaky and try to get me some Patrick Cantlay in there, but I couldn't. There we go. That lighting's a little bit better. Taylor Grizz is back already. So on Yahoo, you know, I'll touch on the Yahoo picks directly like I normally do, but Doc Redman was sticking out a little bit there on Yahoo. If you go up to $21, I definitely still like Matthew Naismith there. But let's just do kind of the quick recap of the Core Plays video that I posted on Monday. It was a good video, I thought. Pretty much last week, obviously, with the previous term, we knew that there was going to be a ton of variance coming in. We saw that with last week, and that's going to happen this week as well. My biggest concern this week is that there's not a lot of great plays, because last week there was a ton of great plays. There's a lot of good plays this week, don't get me wrong, but there's more, I guess, bad plays that are standing out rather than great plays. Last week there was just top down. The player pool was pretty solid on Draftkings, on FanDuel, on Yahoo. It was just, you knew that there was going to be some variance that occurred. This week, there's a lot of bad plays, not many great plays, and there's a ton of good plays. So it'll be a pretty interesting week this week. I think it'll be a lot more evened out, though. And it does seem like that way with the ownerships, and I'll actually get into that with the questions here. We'll talk about the ownership balance. So this week, it does seem like it's a lot more balanced, but Webb Simpson does appear to be one of the more higher owned players on the slate once again, but he was like 25% owned in GPPs and like 50-ish or more in cash contests, which actually brings up another thing I was going to touch on was actually the cash contest selection on DraftKings lately. It has been, you know, pretty weak. I don't know what's going on. There's like 2,000 for contest size. Before they used to be, you know, 10,000. That kind of used to be my bread and butter. It's kind of had to adjust the game accordingly, which kind of sucks. You know, it's been a little bit more of GPPs and trying to find, you know, different GPP strategies. So we'll see if that continues with DraftKings. Maybe we'll have to look towards FanDuel, maybe Fantasy Draft or Yahoo to try to go the cash route here because, like I said, you know, the less entries there are in a cash contest, the smaller the edge is. Now you can still win, and it won't be a problem like last week, 3 out of 6 because of Daniel Berger and Gary Woodland cash, but you know the edge is definitely lowered when the contest sizes are the size they are right now, which is around 2,000. Don't like seeing that. Grizz is wondering about Patrick Rogers, McNeely, and Higgs. So Higgs on Yahoo I like the most out of those three. I believe that's what you're asking about. Patrick Rogers, I naturally just like. That dude has some swag on the golf course. I don't know if you guys see him that much on TV, but he's always decked out properly. McNeely, I'm fine with. Don't want to go that route too much, though. Feeling good about this week. So it's kind of weird smoking guns. As the week has went on, I started to feel a lot better about it, and which was kind of the opposite of last week. Last week, I was just like, all right, got to let it play out, see what happens. This week, I'm kind of just, as the weeks went on, I've wanted to attack a little bit more aggressively, and I feel like I've been able to nail in the core and high exposure plays a little bit more than I was last week. Simpson and Kuchar are almost a lock for cash, in my opinion. See, I don't know if we can use like a lock in cash right now at this point of the year. I get what you're saying there, but it's just too early to, you know, say someone's a lock, I think, just because we haven't seen them enough. You know, it's only the second weekend. If it was, you know, 4 or 5, 6 weeks into the season, I think we could start using that lock word. But I don't think we can say lock just yet, just because obviously, like I said, there's a lot more variance involved this early on in the year. You just don't know how players are going to respond to being back, and we saw that quite a bit last week. I'll finish off the questions here in a second. I do want to get into some of the FanDuel plays here real quick. So Sanjay M, he's kind of the start of the discounted plays on FanDuel. I really like his price point. I don't have much on him on DraftKings, maybe like 1 or 2 builds where he was the salary that I had left over. I just kind of settled with it. Gary Woodland is definitely a great price point. I like him across the industry this week. Last week was a crap week, smoking guns. Doc Redman. So last week on this. The FanDuel plays, I gave you guys Berger as a really nice discount play, and I gave you guys Jim Furyk because he was the bare minimum on FanDuel. I really couldn't believe that. That's how I feel about Doc Redman this week at 7.0K on FanDuel. That seems a little bit too cheap. You look at the next value play available, it's Matthew Naismith at 7.7K. So $700 difference, and those two kind of ranked out the same for me, this week. So I like that price difference. If you guys are playing FanDuel and you're trying to do like a studs and duds lineup, we're just trying to alleviate some salary pressure, Doc Redman would be the route to go this week, kind of like Jim Furyk was that for us last week on FanDuel. And then Adam Hadwin, I do like his price point on FanDuel. He's kind of the best options pretty much on all the slates this week. It's just, a pricing thing for me with Hadwin this week. That's why I like him. All right, so to get into the rest of the questions, I got to pull up my cheat sheet, so give me one sec. All right. So Patrick Reed. So a lot of people had some questions about Patrick Reed this week. And I get it. The dude has been in great form. The problem with me for him this week is more or less his long-term driving accuracy stats. And his ball striking stats, really, and total driving stats. But for me, it was more of a price point play. I think if he was down at 8K or something like that, I would like him a lot more. If he was below Spieth, Brooks, Kuchar, DJ, then I would be, thinking about it a lot more. I just think he's priced at the top of that, pricing tier where I just don't want to do that. I think I'd rather go with Daniel Berger, who's been a great stat fit this whole year. Proved it last week. Last week he was top 15 in driving accuracy and greens and regulation. Obviously that helped him win last week, and I kind of touched on it in the earlier video. I think the mentality is going to be there for him this week to go out and play well. Once again, it's not that normal win hangover. I don't think we're going to see that this week. So I like Daniel Berger a little bit more than Patrick Reed, which kind of sounds weird to say, to be honest with you, but I do. We have some more questions coming in. Naismith, got 20 left over, find the best player. Yeah, Doc Redman for me, he has played this course before. He's a good stat fit. I believe he's from maybe North Carolina, so I would imagine he's played this, tournament, or I should say course, a little bit more. Funny tidbit on Matthew Naismith, I did post this on the membership pages. Matthew Naismith proposed to his now wife on the 18th green 2 years ago. I don't know, that's kind of a narrative street for me there. I think if that were me, I would have some positive feelings going to the event. He's already good stat fit. He was already going to be a value play of ours. That just kind of bumped the ownership up a little bit more for me. Kind of made a little bit more studs and duds lineups. I was kind of 50-50 on if I should go with Doc Redman or Matthew Naismith a little bit more. Kind of went with Naismith because of that, little narrative. I think that'll just kind of help him a little bit more, and it's a little bit more likely that he'll make the cut. Luke Donald. So people are loving Luke Donald, and I get it. I just don't think I can do it. Let me pull him up on my stat sheet this week, because I definitely looked him over a little bit, but I don't believe he played last week. I can't remember off the top of my head, so let me pull it up. It's going to take a couple of seconds. I know he has a good course history, and that's what stood out to me as well. All right. And I don't think the stats have been there like they used to be. All right, so looking at him on DraftKings, 7,000, 2019, 33rd finish. The year before that, miscut, and then 2017, 2016, both top 5 finishes. So it's his total driving and ball striking. He's one of the worst on the tour right now. His strokes gained total isn't bad. He's been a great putter. He's made his last 2 cuts, but his bogey avoidance isn't there and his driving accuracy isn't there. And I'm looking at his wind stats right now from earlier on in the year. They're not very good. So if it does get windy, which it's sort of projecting to get windy, I don't know. I don't like that as much at that price point. I think there's other plays right around him that we can go with that are going to be, just as good or better with more upside. I get the play because driving accuracy and, just plotting your shots matters a lot on this course, and that pretty much has been Luke Donald. I just don't see it. I think that's risky at that price point. Now, if he was 6.3K, which is kind of where I think he should be priced at, then we would think about it. I don't see it this week. I think it's a little bit too risky for me. Seems like it could be a Brian Gay week. Yeah, let me pull him up now too. See, now that one I think was one that caught my eye, and it might have been on the Showdown site. I would have to double check that. But yeah, So good point there. So Brian Gay is pretty much where Luke Donald should be price point wise. Almost same course history. Brian Gay, 54, 76, and missed cut. Okay, 3 straight made cuts. Hasn't been that great this year, but I think I'd rather go that route just because of the price point than Luke Donald. Redmond over Luke Donald, yes, for sure with me. Redmond, obviously they're both value plays, so it's going to be somewhat risky, but that's going to be the route I go with. All right, I'm going to get into some of the Yahoo plays here, and then I'll come back to the questions here, the question screen. So discount plays on Yahoo. So I already mentioned Redmond. I also do like Zach Johnson quite a bit this week. He was popping somewhat staff-wise. He played really well last week from driving accuracy and greens and regulation. We saw him kind of really struggle early on in the season. But we always know that Zach Johnson is pretty much a guy that's going to always try to go out and make the cut. We've seen that with him quite a bit. He has good course history, a 16th, a 42nd, and a 33rd finish. He kind of aligns with Jordan Spieth a little bit. Last week, people were trying to play him just because he has good course history and just because he's a guy that kind of will go out and grind a made cut. We get Zach Johnson pretty cheap on both Draftkings, but also on Yahoo at $20. I really like that price point for a guy that should make the cut. Now, I don't think he'll do much once he makes the cut, but I do like that price point. He is 26th in bogey avoidance, and he has been really putting well. He's top 25 in that. If he can hit it well, accurately, like he did last week, he's going to have no problems making the cut. No problem, Grizz. Thanks for asking the questions, man. Always happy to help. Joel Dahman on Yahoo, $25 for Joel Dahman on Yahoo. Damon, sorry, whatever. He's been some great recent form, and I just think that if I wanted to play him this week, it's going to be on Yahoo, just because of that price point. It makes your lineup construction really easy, because look at the rest of the prices on Yahoo this week. We got Daniel Berger, $31. See, Yahoo is a little bit slower to increase his prices, which I really like, because I think DraftKings went a little bit too crazy this week. FanDuel's kind of in the middle, and Yahoo really was lagging in their pricing. Adam Hadwin's $32. I'm kind of fine with that, but Colin Morikawa, $37, and Xander. You know, we can start our lineups out there on Yahoo with Morikawa, Xander. You can throw in, Berger, Dahman, whatever route you want to go, you can pretty much go that route. Now you can pretty much fit like 4 or 3 high-tier plays that are on DraftKings on your Yahoo build this week. So, and I played a little bit more on Yahoo this week. It was pretty successful on Yahoo last week. Just touched on the Yahoo plays last week. I told you guys Bryson DeChambeau was kind of like Morikawa and Xander this week, where he was the lowest price down guy that could really go off. And then Daniel Berger and, Harris English was also priced pretty cheap on Yahoo. So those were the plays I was on quite a bit on Yahoo. All right, so I'll get to that question in a second there, Josh and Smoking Guns. Do want to touch on DJ a little bit, because I've been seeing him talked up quite a bit. So some of the ownerships, it's looking like it'll be, Webb, Sanjay M, Bryson, DJ. Those guys will all be in the top 10 of ownerships, but none of them's like really crazy like it was last week. There's no like ownerships that I think are too high this week, but there's a ton of ownerships that I think are a little bit too low, which is a little bit different than last week. But my thoughts on DJ just this week, just because I wanted to bring it up. He is priced extremely low. And yes, people are trying to talk themselves into it because of his good course history. I get that. 28 last year, 16th the year before that. But those years he was actually hitting the ball pretty well. And when he needed to club down and hit the fairway, he could do that, much like Rory, I guess, this year. He hasn't really been able to do that this year too much. Sure, he still ranks out as a top 50 play in my model this week, but at that price point, I think there's much better plays right around his salary or, lower than his salary. So I think I'll be staying away from DJ this week. I would get it if you guys do want to play him, but I couldn't do it. I ended up in his price point range a ton, and I put Finau in one lineup, which I didn't have him in my player pool this week, but I kept ending up on Kuchar, even going down to Hatton, trying to get up to Berger. So I threw Finau in like one lineup just because I wanted to diversify it a little bit. The weather split. So I do want to mention this. This was some premium content that I put on the membership page for some really specific, showdown picks in round 1 and showdown picks in round 2. Do want to just say it does look like the Thursday AM split tee time is going to have a slight advantage. Now, weather can change pretty easily, especially on the coast there, especially along the water there. But it's looking like it's going to be, 15-mile-per-hour winds Thursday evening, and then Friday it's only going to be around 10. So it's going to be a slight weather advantage. I don't think that's going to be anything crazy. But if you're doing the showdown slate, look for those early tee times on both Thursday and Friday. That'll help you guys out quite a bit. They'll really be able to narrow your player to pool down quite a bit as well. Then expectations in DFS early in the season. So I really don't think anyone should have any, crazy expectations early on in PGA DFS. It's really kind of just the feel out part of the season, where later on in the season, like I mentioned it at the end of last week's video, the majors this year are going to be absolutely crazy. We are really going to attack those. So right now it should be kind of just taking those practice reps to get you ready for, later on in the season when the contests are going to be crazy and fun. All right, now getting back into the rest of the questions here. Thoughts on Bud Cauley and Sam Burns? So Bud Cauley I actually like quite a bit. I'm perfectly fine with that play. It's going to be a really solid play this week. Sam Burns, no, he didn't make my player pool this week. I did see the appeal for him, but I don't know. I found like a few value plays in there that I really like that I just would rather go with. Yeah, Grizz, if I had to choose between both of those, I think Redmond has the most upside. I think Zach Johnson's going to have a little bit more cut equity, but I like them both quite a bit, just given the price points. Thanks, Hazy. Appreciate it, man. For those long shot odds, obviously, someone like Dr. Redmond where he's popping like that, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. What was it? Let me just pull up some of those real quick. Naismith at that price point. Now, obviously, these aren't expected. They're long shot odds for a reason, but, Redmond did pop out. Naismith popped out. I would have to pull it up, but there was like two other long shot odds. Hadwin was one of them. Yes, I heard someone kind of worried about him wearing a mic this week. I'm not too worried about that. I know Ricky sucked last week, but he's kind of had some just random horrible events because I don't think it's because of the mic. But Hadwin was another long shot one for me. I will be posting the actually betting card right after this video on the membership page. Was really focused on the showdown content today and yesterday, just because I thought there would be a weather edge, and there was. Now I'm going to get into the betting side of it. Probably will do a couple top 25s and whatnot on there this week as well. But did hit on the Daniel Berger call last week. He was the top 6 play for 9 to 5 last week. He was on the betting card last week. Sabatini, English, or Hadwin for FanDuel. I'll pull up that slide once again for you. So I do think that Hadwin is priced pretty low, given his price point. I do like English as well. I think Hadwin, it's tough. I think English has just as much upside as Hadwin. I think Hadwin has, pretty solid cut likelihood. He's a strong win player, so is English. I do like Sabatini as well, but just not as much as the other two. I think I would go Hadwin for safety, especially because English did just miss the cut. I do really like him as a play this week, but I would go Hadwin, then English, then Sabatini there. Slightly. It's very slight there. It's a good question. Then if you guys don't have any more questions soon coming in, I'll be wrapping up here pretty shortly. Do want to mention the membership page. Do give you guys a sample build early on in the week. That has actually changed quite a ton for me. I shouldn't say a ton. I've been changing the lineup a ton. I'll put it that way. Kevin Kisner might be making it. Kind of like Kisner as the week has went on. The only problem with him is that I've noticed that he kind of sucks when he has an early tee time on Thursday. Hopefully that'll change at a course that he's played well at, and the course that he really wants to do well at. So I do like him. I have give you guys the player pool, the stat model, kind of the cheat sheet, which is the stat model, but it's a little bit more eye appealing. And then we give you guys the exposures. The exposures right now are a little bit different than what they will be later on in the year. Later on in the year, core play will be 45 to 70% ownership. Really depends on the week, obviously. But right now the core plays are like 35 to 40% ownerships. It's just kind of that's what we got right now. We are trimming down the exposures to make it more streamlined, because there's a lot more variance early on in the year. I've touched on that quite a bit. Video breakdown, as always, you guys get that on YouTube. That's free. And then everything else pretty much comes available on the website, whether it's showdown picks, the betting cards. I got the membership chat. That's all available for you guys. 10 minutes or $10 a month, which is, I think it's the best value across the industry for sure. Thoughts on Woodland? Had him last week. I really like Woodland quite a bit this week as well. I think he's pretty safe at that price point, and that's kind of why I don't like Patrick Reed, and that's why I don't like DJ, because you got Woodland there. Dude's a great win player, first in ball striking, first in total driving. He's just a guy that's most likely going to make the cut, and then if he's a guy that if he makes the cut, he can probably go on and get a top 10 like he did last week. I was pretty bummed to see him kind of fade off. I had a little bit more of Woodland than I did Berger, and I had, Colin Morikawa a decent amount as well, but I was hoping Woodland would win it, and then Berger, and then Morikawa in that finish last week. Worth spinning up for Rory. So Rory, I think he's safer this week. He kind of tumbled on Sunday, but I'm not that worried about it. Webb, honestly, he did play poorly. I think he'll bounce back perfectly fine here, but he is being talked up a ton this week, which does worry me. His ownership is pretty high this week again. I would go with Rory if you can pay up for him. Anytime you can really pay up for the studs on a slate, you should pretty much do it if you had the salary left over. I don't think you ever really have to go out of your way, but if you had the money left over, don't really overthink it that much. I think, that's a pretty easy route to go. We'll be wrapping up here in about a minute or so. So if you guys have any last minute questions, get those in and I'll get those answered for you. If not, we're going to be logging off here. Should be a fun week. I am looking forward to this one. It is kind of crazy. I think last week is going to be the best tournament strength and overall tournament that we'll probably have all year and maybe even next year. You look at the guys that were coming in. We had value plays that had missed one cut at like 6.2K last week. Now, we don't have that as much this week, but last week it was absolutely loaded with good plays and great plays. Thoughts on Xander, Brian? I like Xander a ton this week. I said he's my favorite player right now, and I faded him last week. I'm going to play him this week. He has good course history. He was really accurate off the tee and with greens and regulation last week, and pretty much overall he's been pretty solid at that as well. Xander really stood out for me as a play, especially here on Yahoo at $40. So if you play across different platforms, Yahoo's definitely the better place to play him, but I do really like him this week on Draftkings as well. The problem with Draftkings this week is that there's a ton of value from like 8.5K all the way down to like 7.3K. So you can pay up for a ton of high-tier players. You can pay up for like 2 high-tier players. It's really just establishing which one is going to make the cut for you, which one doesn't miss the cut. Webb Simpson, he missed the cut last week. I ended up on him a ton this week as well. So it's kind of just nailing the last part of your player pool, that 6th guy into your build. Thoughts on Kuchar or Woodland? I think Woodland I like the most. Kuchar's not bad. I do worry. He was struggling off the tee a little bit last week. That's kind of my biggest worry. If he wasn't struggling off the tee, I would have just rolled with him, and I do think he would have came back last week if he didn't double bogey on 18. Finau I'm perfectly fine with. He's priced after Brooks. He's priced after Jordan. He's priced after DJ. 8.2K for Finau. I do like that quite a bit. Like I said, I ended up on him in one of my builds just because I had a little bit too much Hatton, and I didn't want to have too much salary left over to go down from him to someone like who is it? Not English. There's someone at 7.7K that I was on quite a bit this week. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. Hideki, I do like quite a bit. I've seen a lot of people hyping up Sanjay M, which I get. I think him and Hideki are pretty similar style of plays, and I like Hideki a little bit more on DraftKings this week. Yes, we do worry about him just because he's kind of had a weird year, but the last time we saw him was at the Players' Championship when he went off and dominated. So I do like Hideki, quite a bit. I think he is someone that is being overlooked quite a bit. I definitely landed on him enough and feel fine about it. I think the high tiers are literally just that shoulder shrug. You're like, oh, that's fine. Ended up on that guy as my 5th or 6th player into my build. That's fine. He'll make the cut. We'll see what he does. How would you rank Damon? I gotta get that right. Poulter and Hovland. For me, interesting. Poulter, Damon, Hovland for me. I do like all 3 of them. Hovland I wasn't on this week, but he's one of those plays where if you're on it, I won't talk you off. There's always a few of those, each week. Reed was one of those players this week. I'm not going to talk anyone off of it, but I just wasn't feeling it this week. That's kind of how I feel about Hovland, but those plays do make sense. So if you're lining up on one of those guys, it makes sense. But for me, I like Poulter's course history a little bit more. He's actually been pretty much a cut maker as well. Played solid last week, so I like him. Damon I do like too, but his stats weren't exactly there as much. So, yep, that's it for those three. Oh, I do like Fitzpatrick, yeah. I'm perfectly fine with Fitzpatrick. He's one of those guys. I didn't go out of my way to get him into my builds, but yeah, I've ended up on him a little bit here. He's one of those shoulder shrug plays, if you want to call it that, if that's going to become a saying there. Looking at your pricing tiers, you get your 3 or 4 guys that you really like, and then you're, I'm in Fitzpatrick range. Sure, plop them into that build. That's perfectly fine. That's kind of the problem right now, is that there's 3 or 4 plays that are standout plays, and then there's like 10 plays that are, solid plays, which normally there's like 5 or 4 plays that we can really depend on to make the cut, and then there's like 3 or 4 other players that we're really just nitpicking to finish out our build. This week there's a lot more people that we're, nitpicking with to finish out our build, and I think that's kind of the problem early on in the year, is that the plays don't stand out as much as they should, like they do later on in the year. So it's a little bit hard to predict. But yeah, Fitzpatrick I'm perfectly fine with. 5th player, 6th player to build. Like I said, shoulder shrug play for me this week. All right, that is it, guys. Thanks for joining the live stream. Got a 30-minute video here. Had a bunch of questions coming in. I do appreciate that. It makes it go by fast. Hope you guys do well. I know the live stream last week was actually pretty solid with the plays that we highlighted. Talked up Berger a ton last week. Talked up Bryson on Yahoo. Matthew Naismith was a play that I touched on in the whole video. And then Jim Furyk on FanDuel was awesome. So who's the good chalk versus bad chalk? I don't think there's bad chalk necessarily this week, just because looking at the chalk, it's not as high as it was last week for the ownerships. Let me sum it up this way. There are some ownerships that people are low on that I don't think they should be. I think Hadwin, I think Billy Horschel, even English's ownership should be a little bit higher. So looking at it that way is how I'm looking at it this week. I don't think there's good or bad chalk necessarily this week. I think there's some people that should be higher owned and aren't this week. Last week there actually was good and bad chalk. Hey, fingers crossed for you too, Ozzy. I hope you hit that one. He better bounce back this week. He's popping too much stat fit wise. If he doesn't hit this week, I'm going to be a little bit sad too. All right, guys. So that's it. That was the live stream. I do appreciate everyone being here. Here's the send off. Thanks, guys. Just remember, if you guys want to join 9 to 5 Nation, it's $10 a month. The link will be in the description below. If you guys want, I will be trying to answer some questions in the comment section below as well. Not sure if I'll be able to get to those the later they are in the night. All right, guys, we're out. Let's have a good week, and let's keep